Yeah.
So if I put myself all the time and like I'm not good enough because he cheated, or I'm this, why this person did this for me, I will not be where I am today. So that was one of my biggest exercise. Every day, I'm beautiful. I'm gonna accomplish this. My dreams are gonna come true.
Right.
I'm gonna do that, and I can share with you a lot. In 2019, was it 2019? No, it was last year. 2 billboards. I landed in Times Square, and I remember how I was like, oh, my body and all of these things. And when I got this billboard, I was in a lingerie for a brand name Nude Bar, and these 2 big photos, and I remember standing in front of it and just crying, because I'm like, this person who didn't feel good about herself, that she didn't feel beautiful, and just seeing it there, it was for me kind of like God highlighted my life, you know. He wanted me to know that I was enough, that no matter anything that I went through, that I was sufficient enough. So like you said, this is the beauty of being open and vulnerable when you have a situation. And that billboard means a lot to me, because it was the first time that I saw myself, how he placed me in the city that I came to, with people walking daily looking at me and just saying, wow, he really rose me up. Like, he really put me there, you know?
Growing Up Latina. I'm your host, Alyi V, and I'm with Big Flexer, Martha Luna. What's going on? You know I had to call you Big Flexer because you just flexed on me.
I thought we were going to keep that for this. It was going to be a secret.
How is it a secret?
But thank you for having me here, especially in Growing Up Latina. So saludos, because we have also Latinos who probably look at the show and everything, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you so much for coming. Let's start with, where are you from?
Caracas, Venezuela.
Ooh.
I was born there.
You was born there?
Yes.
Okay, when did you come here to New York?
So my dad used to work for a huge Venezuelan airline called Aeropostal, and I've always traveled since I was little. But my grandmother and my mom used to come to New York a lot for shopping and things like that. I mean, I was the kid in Venezuela taking peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that people didn't even know what was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And around 8, 9, I moved to Brooklyn with my grandmother. So my grandmother raised me, which she's 89 right now, and it's the only grandma I have left. So I'm happy that I can share a lot of these dreams that she had for our entire family to come here.
Now, are you an only child?
No, I have...
How many? Tell me.
Let me see. I have an older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister.
Okay, so you fall in the middle.
Yeah, I'm the middle child.
How was that for you?
It depends, because I'm the middle. I don't want to put my parents' business out there, but with my mom and my dad, it's my brother and I. So I'm the first. And for my grandmother, the one I moved here with, I'm the first granddaughter.
Okay.
And
so
then,
we call that blended families.
Yes.
Which is good. We have that. Okay.
Yes.
So how was that? Did you guys all get along?
No.
No. Okay.
I think I only pretty much get along the most actually with my brother, the younger one. We do a lot together. He's actually one of the persons who helps me a lot with my photography content now. That. So we have a really like... I'll die hard for my brothers in a sense. So, but you know, I have my sister, she's 6 years older than me, and then I have my brother. We do get along. It's not like we have any like type of argument, but I think I'm closer to my brother, Fabian. So that's his name. Okay.
So you came here, so you were living in Brooklyn.
Yeah, but also when I came here, I didn't came here with my siblings. We all came at different times. So my brother didn't come here until he was like 15. And we're 6 years apart. So I was like 8. He was probably like 2 when he was still in Venezuela. And when I moved with my grandmother, I lived with my younger cousin, who is the second granddaughter. So it was her, my aunt, my cousin, my younger cousin, my uncle, and myself. My parents still lived in Venezuela somewhat.
Okay, and would you speak to them during this time? Like, would you like check in and just say like,
I was kind of like, it was hard for me to detach, knowing that I was here in this country. I couldn't understand it yet, but now I am grateful, and I thank my grandmother for the move that we have, you know, taken. But it was a little hard. Like, I used to run up a lot of the phone bills everywhere. I was
Did you have like the calling cards?
Well, at first,
like,
it was
like
it was cool, the calling cards, but honestly, I was young too, so whenever I got a chance to like call my dad and things like that, I will just dial out. So that's one of the things that my dad always laugh about, because it's like, yo soy la hija que te di muchos dolores de cabeza, you know, like I gave him a lot of headaches. So he probably was like, I don't know where this child is going to end up. Like, you know, she cannot get used to like moving here. But look how I turned out, Dad. Look how I turned out.
No, which is good. But was it hard to like make friends here? Because for me, when I moved, so I was born in Puerto Rico, but when I moved here, you know, I moved to Spanish Harlem, I didn't know any English at all. So it was very hard for me to actually make friends, because they all spoke English and I'm speaking Spanish, and you know, just to understand the language was a bit of trouble for me. But I wonder what that was like for you.
Actually, no. When I was probably about 3, I already had English and Spanish fluent, because my mom, she's like the international mix. It's like Trini mixed with Chinese. So my mom speaks fluent English. So I had that, you know, my grandparents on my mom's side speaks English, and I had my grandma on my dad's side that speaks more Spanish but also spoke English. So my family was pretty much bilingual. Okay. So it was pretty easy when I got here. I actually felt like I got more popular in schools and things like that here, because in Venezuela, per se, a Venezuelan woman doesn't look like me. So I represent for the Afro-Latinas. And I felt like it's still, and even till this day, it's still a lot of like racism in a sense. So kids get bullied. Like I remember going to school over there, and they will see my dad, who is like, looks like a black man here, and they'll be like, oh, ahí viene el papá de Marta, there comes Marta's dad, el negrito, like things like that. Or like they'll see my grandma, and they'll say, oh, does your grandmother sell like fruits in the, you know, in the supermarket and things like that. So it's just those things, but luckily they didn't like get to me when I was younger. I had like a very strong, like I used to fight a lot in school. So my mom and my dad had to like every day they'll have to come and pick me up in the principal's office, because they was like, oh, she's fighting with her lunch kid, and some kid told her something and she's fighting. So
but what were you fighting about? Was it that? Was
it like if they will be like, oh, your dad, or like, oh, el negrito este, and I'll take my lunch kid and I'll just fight with them, and here comes the parents. They'll pick me up.
Yeah, in school, I wasn't a fighter, but if you said something about my parents, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna come.
For me, it was my parents and my grandparents. Yeah. So as soon as I heard anything like tu abuela this or tu mamá this or tu papá, it's over. Like it's over. I even used to fight for my older sister. That my mom, we always say this story because my nieces, I have 2 nieces that are my sister's daughter, Sophie and Ella, and it's funny that my younger niece has my personality and my older niece is just like my older sister. So it's funny because she's like, if Sophie, if something happens, I can fight for you. So when I hear them say that, I think it's me saying it to my sister, like I'll beat the kids up in school for my sister.
What about like at home? So you would get into these fights and then you come home, like what would they say?
Yeah, but I was like young. I was like 5, 6, you know, it was like preschool, 1st grade. And, you know, my mom just be like, oh, you don't have to be doing that in school, or my dad. But yeah, I was like, I'm not taking that. You're not going to be calling my grandmother this. Like, I used to be like and just the way they used to disrespect and say things like, oh, her dad probably sell like arepas here, or, you know, things like that.
But I'm like, that's a stereotype.
Yeah, and I was like, my dad works for airplanes. My dad works for a good airline. Like, he has a career. What are you talking about? Or like, they'll say this about my grandmother. And I was like, but your grandmother doesn't go to New York. Like, things like that. So I was like, okay, what are you going to say? I'm going to upper, you know, my game, saying something that my family's doing. But thankfully, those things that happened to me in Venezuela didn't affect me. Because I know that bullying can affect, you know, as you grow in your personality. So I think I love my family so much that I just believe that this is it, and I didn't really let that get to me.
What about now going into high school? What was that like for you? Were you always like this fashionista? Like, where did that come from? I feel like some people are born with that,
always love fashion. Like, you know how you say, in my country, decimos la palabra coqueta. Like, you're very, like, girly. You know, I've always been girly, but I also went through, like, a tomboy transition where I used to wear, like, you know, like, Sporty Spice from Spice Girls. That was your look? That was my look. But I also had, like, really long hair. So I was, like, Pocahontas in high school. And you know, it wasn't always like the heels, but yeah, you can tell I'm girly even though I was like sporty, per se. I did go through a few things in my life. Like, in Venezuela, I was raped when I was 7. And I was molested into my high school days. So I wasn't very open to say that I'm like sociable. So I was very into like my books in school, into my books. I went through a lot of depression because of those things that I had to keep like silently. Because I didn't share those things actually until I, you know, got older. And
was it that you were afraid of what?
Like,
were you afraid that they wouldn't believe you, or?
Well, when I was younger, being raped so young, the person who did it was like, oh, I know where your mom and your dad live, so if you say anything, it's kind of like I can harm your parents. So telling a 7-year-old that you're not going to say anything. So I felt like that's a struggle that developed for me to have a lot of like depression when I came here. And being so far from my parents, one of the biggest things for me was kind of like, when I'm going to see my dad, like when I want to see my dad again. Because my mom had already came here, but she lived in New Jersey, in Jersey City, and I just ended up staying with my grandma. And then the kids, you know, in high school, like boys and things like that, I guess because of the way I looked, but I was like, no, I'm not the girl that wanted to be like, you know, with all these guys and things like that. Like, I was really into my books and things like that, and discovering what my life is like, because obviously as an immigrant, your life is totally different. You don't get a driver's license like a 16-year-old. I came here, my parents, neither one wasn't a U.S. citizen then, so I was an immigrant kid, and even to my adult age for a very long time.
Now, I'm just like thinking of like, because, you know, we hear that a lot of these things happen, right?
And this is actually one of my first interviews that I'm pretty open sharing this story. Like, you know, I've written like blogs and certain things like that when I was a blogger, or like help someone who wrote me something through DM. But like openly, I feel like, you know, we all have a story that should help another woman or inspire, and that's why we have a voice of impact. So why not share those stories that we have already overcome?
Well, you know, the reason why I asked, and thank you for sharing, because you didn't have to be open, you know, about that. And you're right, it will help a lot of people. You know, oftentimes I feel like sometimes I get afraid to even share, you know, or be vulnerable with some of the things that happened in my life, you know, for fear of like, will people believe me? You know, and that was like the biggest thing, you know, in my childhood, because I too got molested, but I never shared it. Forever, I never shared it, because I always felt like, would they believe me? And that's why I asked, like, did
I
they
can
believe
give you
me?
an advice. You know, at the end of the day, our story is our story. So your story is your story, my story is my story. But you know what's the beautiful thing of being open, whether somebody believes you or not, is the freedom and the peace that we feel when we say it, that we have healed, that we have overcome, that we are a woman who can empower another woman who probably has fear or is afraid, and we can teach them how it worked for us. How did we heal? How, you know.
But how do you heal from that? Because I could imagine there's 7 years old, like what?
Well, like, honestly, like for me, it took a lot of years.
Yeah.
It took a lot of years.
Does that look like therapy though? Do you get professional help
or something like that? I did get therapy like in my 20s. I wasn't really into wanting to have boyfriends, and obviously it gives you a lot of insecurity of how a man is going to be and things like that. But also once you start learning about self-love and knowing that that didn't happen to you because of you, it's homework, but it's not impossible. Because, you know, I'm here. Before, when I used to talk about this, I would always cry. And that's when I knew, like, there's still healing that needs to be done there. So for me to be open today and feel at peace to share this and, you know, help another woman who might be going through this, which I've had. I've, you know, got to speak in public places, and but never shared it in an interview per se. So, like, I've shared it in blogs and things like that, and I've had other girls that wrote me like, you're brave for saying this. So our struggle and our story that once was very hurtful for us before we were healed, it's a brave story to empower and help another woman in need. Where
do you find your peace?
I'm very spiritual. You know, I always tell I respect everybody's religion, but I feel like God for me is the center of everything. I journal a lot, so I love writing about anything. My dreams, things that I go through, even if I want to cry. I feel like I express them well. I also pray a lot, and I just live my life grateful. I feel like once you have gratitude daily for everything, because sometimes even on the days that you wanted something to happen for you, but it didn't, I still wake up and say like, but I'm breathing, I'm alive. There's people who not even breathing right now. They're in a bed in a hospital, or might not have a roof over their head. So in every little bad situation, there's something, even if it's this small, that you can be thankful for.
That's so powerful, because I feel like, and even with me, sometimes I get up and I'm like so angry, and I'm like, why am I so angry? Like, there's people that are going through real like situations, and you don't see it because you're so caught up in your world. And then you hear stories like this, and you're like, no, like, you're right. There's so much to be grateful for. There's little things that you can do. I wonder, what is your self-care look like? Like, how do you show yourself love?
I love to go shopping. For sure. No, I'm just kidding. But
so retail therapy.
Retail therapy, self-care for me, honestly, is I love staycations a lot, where I disconnect, because sometimes we're so busy that also we cannot travel. Like recently, I went to this place called glamping. What's glamping? Glamping, I'm not really big on like camping or anything, you know, but because of like the mosquitoes and things like that. But it was like,
it's like a cabin though?
It's like a cabin, but it's literally in Greenpoint in Brooklyn. Okay. They look like these shipping bins that they remodel into like these fabulous Airbnbs. I took my dog because it's pet friendly. I love my dog.
Do you have Wi-Fi there? Or?
Yes, you have. It's like so you're like camping, but you're in the city. It's like top tier. It's a little bit more glamorous. That's why it's called glamping. So it's like camping with a little bit of glam, but just the view, like from the suite that you have or the room that you have. It's like the entire city and a lot of water. I love being around the water. I actually lived in Puerto Rico for 2 years. I just moved back in March. I missed it a lot. I lived in Ocean Park, so I was like 2 minutes from the beach, 6 minutes from the airport. But being in that glamping location as self-care, for me, it's just me, not connected to my phone, not connected to social media, giving time to myself of like, you know, what I accomplished this week, giving myself gratitude for things, thanking God, like, wow, all of this happened in this week. And I think sometimes for self-care, we need to just pause sometimes. Pause and disconnect completely. You know, because sometimes we say we disconnect, we take our iPad or we take our phone, but like, you're going to end up doing something. So when you disconnect, do not disturb phone. I love baths, so I definitely take a lot of
Love
time
baths.
laying in a bath. I like to listen to music.
What kind of music do you listen to?
Well, when I do self-care, I love jazz a lot, like coffee table jazz, Ella Fitzgerald. I love Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra. But I also love Christian music. It depends like what artists I'm listening to. And yeah, that's kind of like the self-care for me.
You know, you're speaking and I'm just like thinking this entire time, like, where does her strength come from? Because you, like, that's the vibe that I'm getting from you. Like, oh my gosh, she is so strong. She's so courageous. Where does that come from?
I feel like it's all the things that I've gone through that I'm just like, I didn't come to the U.S. to give up, you know? Like, so being a Latina for me, it's important to share. And yesterday, to mention, I had an interview with the #1 reporter of my country. Like, I saw this man
big deal.
Sitting down with my dad when I was 4 or 5 years old, you know, Sergio Novelli. Amazing that he reached out to me to do this interview. And the biggest thing from that is seeing that he has about 2 million plus viewers, and 90% of those viewers are Venezuelan. So for me to interview, it was kind of like, how am I going to touch their heart? How can I inspire them? You know, I don't want to be like, oh, she's one of those Venezuelan that just left the country. No, because when I left, things were harder for us. It's not like right now that you get, you know, like certain like refugee help that you can come. Like, it was either you get married with someone or you just stick it out until it's your time. And I didn't become a citizen until my 30s, and I'm 39. So I was here from a very young age, struggling, where it's kind of like, okay, like my grandmother taught me, you can't work at certain things. I started working at the age of 12, cleaning houses with my grandmother. Wow. So when people says like, oh, you're so lucky, you have these brands, you have this clothes. I used to be the kid that went to high school with maybe 12 items a year. How do I switch up these 12 looks or pieces into the same thing to go to public school?
Like, how do you repurpose it?
And just like everything I've gone through, and of course, there's times that, like we say, tirar la toalla, like I wanted to give up, but I've always believed in my dreams. Like I always believed what I saw myself as what I wanted to be. And even when others didn't believe or had that vision that you had, it's okay. That's why I always tell people, don't follow that. Block those noises. Continue, because your purpose and your path is not the same one that someone else is going to have.
That's right.
We could be two fashionistas right here, but what you bring to the table and your flavor is not my flavor and what I bring to the table. So that's why I always have to focus as, how is Martha Luna going to inspire the world? How is Martha Luna going to say she made it? She made it. You know, it wasn't because of how you thought me or how somebody else did. It's because of my own story.
Right. But something happened, right? Because, you know, you're talking about how you grew up and, you know, it was difficult for you. But then there's a time where there's a shift in your life. And you had an opportunity, or you created an opportunity for yourself that led you to the path that you are in now. When did that happen? What was that turning point for you?
I felt like it was, so I was married. Okay. I've been married before once. My ex-husband was Puerto Rican, so that's why like the Puerto Rican culture for me was, it is still very special. I was married for 7 years. I was an army wife, and it was like, she's the fashion army wife. So my actual first article that I ever got discovered was the Huffington Post and the New York Times, because they were like, she's a fashion army wife? Wait. He wasn't such a good Puerto Rican husband, so I went through a divorce. And that's when I kind of said, I fell in depression for like a year, but then I was like, I've gone through all of this, and I've overcome worse. And thankfully, you know, by then I worked for Marriott for 10 years. They've helped me out with sponsorship because I was with the company for so long.
Was that your first opportunity in like footing into the fashion world?
No, Marriott Hotels was like
Marriott Hotels.
Yeah,
I'm
Marriott
sorry,
Hotels was like my job.
Okay, that was your job.
Well, once I was an army wife, I opened my blog, which was MDoll
Okay,
and that will be 10 years, October 10th, October 30th, sorry.
Okay.
So I opened my blog, but for me, because we lived in Virginia as an army wife, and I was like, it's boring here. It's nothing that has to do with fashion.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to have a voice, but I didn't want people to actually know who I was. Then I did the blog for 3 years silently, where I will always write, post articles, show you what's the latest trends. And I had a lot of like viewers, and obviously my army wife friends then. Then I went through before I went through my divorce, he had to go to Afghanistan and for 9 months. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to stay in Virginia. I'm going to go back to New York. I started working for Robert Clergerie as a showroom stylist. And then they started sending me to really big events. And in one event that I had, I met the lady from the Huffington Post, which I didn't even know she worked for the Huffington Post, the editor. And she was
what was that conversation like?
Well, it was like how we're speaking right now. Yeah. She was very driven that she was like, I can't believe you're like a fashion girl, but like you are an army wife. How do you deal with deployment? And she was like, but obviously I've been through a lot of really hardships. So I think army was pretty easy for me to hold down, except obviously praying and making sure that your husband arrived and came home safely. You know, shout out for all the army wives that do that hard work and the soldiers that put their life there for us. So that was for me kind of like just keeping my mind busy. I didn't want it to be the normal army wife that normally are some stays home, some work. But I was like, no, I want to work. And, you know, when he comes home, we can go out on vacation for a long time. So I had that hustle mentality of New York. You know, I'm not going to be home. Right. So I came here. They sent me to that event. And then 2 days later, well, she asked me for my business card. I wasn't prepared, so I did not have a business card. But so I was like, what'd you give her? I give her my email. I was like, here's my email on social media, you know. And she said, oh, amazing. We will stay in touch. And then she wrote me on the email, can she interview him while he was in Afghanistan? I was like, I'll have to ask his battalion and see if I can do that and send you his direct info. And then she was like, yeah, we want to feature your story in the Huffington Post. Wow. And that was kind of like my big break. Wow. So I literally was in the Huffington.
What goes through your mind when you hear this?
I was like, the Huffington Post and the New York Times. I'm like, okay. And honestly, for that to happen just for me without no representation, it's big. And from there, it's just like open doors, blessings. Then a little bit of things stopped. Like I started getting exposure with people en español, la venezolana que está conquistando las redes, Univision, like so many, or Univision. I say Univision porque soy Latina. And then obviously I went through my divorce, which my marriage was pretty public on social media. So that was kind of hard for me to come back and say, I'm going through a divorce. Like I didn't know how to find the strength for that. So I kind of disappeared from social media for a little bit. I got really depressed, but then I said like, no, I can't let this happen. Like I still have a lot more to accomplish. I got divorced in 2014. Okay. So once that happened, I literally cut my hair like super short, like Halle Berry short.
So you got like, the breakup chop.
I was like, let's cut this thing. And
what was that? Because hair is important for us. You know, so when you cut it, it's like, it's very symbolic. When
it
you cut
is important, but what became symbolic for me is, one, I had lost a lot of weight. I was like at 100 pounds or so, or maybe between 90 to 100. But when I cut my hair, that's when I saw myself in the mirror, and I was just like, I'm beautiful, even with this short haircut that I've never had in my life. Two, that's when I became really close with God, because, I mean, we grew up as, you know, going to Catholic churches and things, but I always thank him for like, thanks for my food, thanks for a roof over my head. But this is where I really, really connected with God. I found a church that I connected with him. One, because, and I want to share my testimony in a sense, because I got to this church and I used to listen to this worship song called God Loves Me. And that was kind of like my worship song to listen to every night with my headphones. So no one knew that I listened to this. This was like me and him. That's it. I go to this church and I'm like, if this church is for me, show me something that only you and I know. And the worship team was like, you know, we normally have a list of all the songs that we want to play, but today we're just going to let God move and shift things. And the first song they played was that song. So that for me was like, you know, that's why I always say I respect everyone's religion or who they believe in, because at the end of the day, I feel like when you get to that encounter with God, you have to get it. You have to find that encounter. That encounter comes to you. It's not something that happens to everyone at once. It's different things in your life that brings you there. So I remember I became very devoted because, you know, when I went through my divorce, he took everything. I started at zero. Wow. No money in our account. Account's empty. No home, nothing. I came back home to Jersey City with my mom. You know, she helped me out. Also, that same year, we lost my stepdad over diabetes. And I had like two strong things that I had to go through. I had to be strong for my mom, and I also had to be strong for my divorce and all of those things with the breakup. So for me, pretty much it was just saying like, kind of like, you know, you have to man up. You have to just go out there and do this.
Like, how do you not?
I also relied on God a lot, honestly. Like just praying, going to church. I found a group of like spiritual sisters that you know I love a lot, especially one from Colombia. Her name is Olga. She's been there for me from day one, and we're still friends. And there's also a close friend of mine. You might know her. I don't know, Crisaida Rodriguez. She's Dominican. We used to go to the same church. She was like a church sister. She died of cancer. Yeah. Rest in peace.
I was so connected to her. I didn't even know her. And I went to her wake in Jersey.
She brought me to that church. So the pastor that was at the wake and everything, that's our pastor. And she introduced me to that church. She was like, no, you don't have to be depressed. You can't be like that. Don't think of taking your life, because, you know, obviously I got to a point that I felt suicidal. And mental health was kind of like up and down for me in that year, because as a woman, I'm like, I failed. What happened in my marriage? I didn't feel beautiful. I didn't feel all of these things. And that's where I had to work in healing. And the biggest part for me in healing was God, those church sisters, including Crisaida, Olga, the other sisters that I had at the end. I told God, I'm going to dedicate my life to church for 1 year completely. No work. If you know, like Psalm 23:1, that if the path, like you will not lack anything, you know, if God is there in your life. So I was like, I know if you put me here, it's because you're gonna rise me up. I dedicated that year. I took pastorship, like minister and pastorship, because one day I do want to do missions, traveling all over the world to teach kids, the youth, women, on the love that I've learned from God. So that's why I'm like, you know, it's not like I had this love from God from forever. Obviously, he probably loved me from forever, from when I was created, but I didn't find that until that breakup, that I was like, this is it for me. Like, I don't know what else I'm going to lean on. And from that strength, cutting my hair, he did so many things for me. He put Olga in my life. Olga paid my cell phone bill for a whole year without me even asking. That's when I learned how a stranger can come to your life and doesn't need to get something in return. Crisaida in my life, we started doing like fashion events together, getting partnerships, things like that. And yeah, it was.
But what about the confidence though? Because you are in this industry.
The confidence did come along within the years, you know, like I think maybe by the age of 35, I went through my divorce when I was 32. So at the age of 35, I'm kind of like, I'm beautiful, you know, God. I'm like, you know, I have to just embrace that, see myself in the mirror every day. And also I went through a lot of like healing in my church, which helped me a lot. You know, like I had the sisters cry out what you're feeling, write out if somebody hurt you. And I remember that day writing a letter to the person who raped me, to the person who molested me, to the man who was unfaithful.
So you were confronting them with your writing. You would write them letters.
I did. I wrote letters, how I forgive them for what they did, but how I will also relieve myself into peace. I have a butterfly tattoo, and that butterfly tattoo, it symbolizes that, you know how butterflies are like caterpillars, and then they just have these beautiful wings. So I was like, we have a powerful mind, and we control that. Yeah. So if I put myself all the time and like I'm not good enough because he cheated, or why this person did this for me, I will not be where I am today. So that was one of my biggest exercise. Every day, I'm beautiful. I'm gonna accomplish this. My dreams are gonna come true. Right. I'm gonna do that. And I can share with you in 2019, was it 2019? No, it was last year. 2 billboards. I landed in Times Square. And I remember how I was like, oh, my body and all of these things. And when I got this billboard, I was in a lingerie for a brand name nude bar. And these 2 big photos, and I remember standing in front of it and just crying, because I'm like, this person who didn't feel good about herself, that she didn't feel beautiful. And just seeing it there, it was for me kind of like God highlighted my life, you know. He wanted me to know that I was enough, that no matter anything that I went through, that I was sufficient enough. So, like you said, this is the beauty of being open and vulnerable when you have a situation. And that billboard means a lot to me, because it was the first time that I saw myself, how he placed me in the city that I came to, with people walking daily looking at me and just saying, wow, he really rose me up. Like, he really put me there, you know? So I'm forever blessed. I feel like
it gave you that belief, like, because it's a lot of things, right, that play into it. Like, you have to be broken down to then build up the confidence.
I should have wore waterproof mascara.
Yeah, thank you.
But this is the beauty of being a woman, right? So
thank you.
This is the beauty of being a woman and having a story. I always say, you see the clothes, you see the fashion, but there's so much
there's something
stories behind us. I mean, including you. I have to probably come and take over the seat one day and do this interview over. But that billboard was special. And then that same year, I landed another billboard. And I was just kind of like, God, you're so big. Like, you know, and also faith, having a lot of patience on what you know you deserve, and knowing your power, where you can get, what you can bring to the table. Because even Times Square, when I shared that with my grandma, it was kind of like, I remember she used to take me to the McDonald's all the time in Times Square, and I will always be so fascinated by the lights. But I never told myself that I was going to be there. So when I landed that billboard, it was even extra special, because
like a full circle.
It was a full circle, but it was also an unexpected gift.
Right.
And ever since then, I've like put on my shoes and I've been unstoppable.
Yeah. I love that you are unstoppable. And that was the thing that I was saying before. It's like the belief in yourself. Like, I feel like just hearing your story, you never stopped believing in yourself.
No. I've had a lot of family members that actually, I mean, also being a Latina, you know, when you have certain dreams, for them it's like, you have to have a career. You're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be this. Right. And when you're like, no, I want to be a fashionista. They see you dressed at a certain way. They're like, you think that dressing like this is going to get you somewhere? Like, what is it going to do for you? Like, my brother laughs at this now, but when I first opened my blog, he always used to tell me, he's like, what are you sitting in a computer posting all these blogs? You think this is going to make you money? Yeah. And I just used to be like, whatever. But obviously now he's very encouraged, because he's a really good photographer, but he wants to be, he's an upcoming trap bilingual artist. So I'm glad that I can inspire him. You know, he's 6, that's the brother that I'm really close with. He's 6 years younger than me, and it's kind of just like, just continue, you know. I don't think I've ever heard of those voices, it hurt me because they put labels on me that they didn't believe that I was going to overcome or become. But that never stopped me of where I knew that I was going and where I wanted to be.
How do you know, like, what your next steps are? Like, what is the next career move for you?
So I finally got signed after so long.
Congrats.
This month is special. I mean, so much has been going on. I'm going to be celebrating my 10 years since I decided to take on this career, the 30th. That's Sunday, I believe. Or whenever this episode airs. So,
what are you going to do to celebrate?
Up. Honestly, I celebrated yesterday, which I'll tell you a little bit of fall in fashion. I just got signed. And you know what's funny? The name of my agency is called God and Beauty. It's called GBDM, which is God and Beauty Digital Management. And I didn't even know that was the name. Wow. So when I did my Zoom call, shout out to Zach, that's my manager. When I did my Zoom call with him and the director and lead content person that is in our agency, you know, we spoke about it, and I always thought, like, what is GMB? Like, what is it? I thought it was global something. But then Angie from the company, she was like, no, it means God and Beauty. I literally cried on the Zoom call because I'm like, you know, it's special to me to know that I gave him my dreams. And when you think that something is not happening, he's preparing all the scenes, all the setup for things to come to you when you're finally ready to receive it. Because sometimes we do ask for things and things come, but we're not really ready. So I was happy. I'm like, you know what? The 10 years taught me a lot of wisdom, taught me a lot of patience, faith, to still continue believing in me, to not give up, that nothing is impossible. And age is just a number, right? I mean, I'm 39. I feel like 29.
Yeah, so, you look 29. You look 29,
so
girl.
I can just feel so happy. She was like, yeah, God and beauty, because everything beautiful comes from God. And that's kind of like powerful. One of the big things that relates to me, again, when it comes to gratitude. No matter how bad your day was, just look at the littlest thing of what you can be thankful for.
Yeah. Do you have like a goal list? Like, do you write like your goals out? Do you have a vision board? Like,
I do vision boards every year. I feel, well, no, I don't feel. I'm going to be very firm. I know that the things that you say, that's why I have to be very careful and ask for wisdom with my words. One, because you have a lot of power with your words. If I wake up every day saying, oh, I'm not going to make it, I don't feel nice today, how are you going to go out in the day with that mindset that you didn't feel good? You know, every day you're going to second guess yourself, am I going to make it? If I wake up every morning like, I'm a boss. I feel
it becomes real.
I'm fire. I'm looking fabulous. I feel good. And obviously, every day we don't feel good, but don't say it. Don't say it, because the negative word is going to repeat and repeat and repeat in yourself. So I understand that I didn't know I was going to be in a billboard, but also the beauty of it is when you write them, those dreams, you're like, you know, I accept this new chapter, let's say, this new season in my life. But I also accept the things that I don't expect that are coming my way, that I know they're going to be big. Because sometimes we do have dreams, but there's bigger dreams for us out there that we haven't even thought about.
Right.
So I feel like you also have to be very open with intentions of what's going to come.
This is why I created Growing Up Latina, because I like the unity. I love the community. I feel like sometimes it gets lost, right? Especially we're in New York and everything is so fast paced, and not often do we take the time to say like, yo, congratulations, you are really killing it. Like, you really have made a lane for yourself. You're doing an amazing job, because we're so focused on what we're doing, our own path. But when you get to see someone like a Jaleesa, or I meet you, or I meet Jaleesa, it's like, now we start building this.
Yeah, it's
like,
you know, the beautiful thing, one of the things I said yesterday on this interview, they asked me, or the interview that I had with the Venezuelan journalist, is that there's space for everybody.
That's right.
It's so beautiful to know that you walked into an event with 10 badass, beautiful girls and women, or just walk in one person and like, I'm everything. So I rather walk in with 10 badass girls because we all have a different flavor. We all have different cultures. You can even put two Puerto Ricans together and one person might have a favorite dish and the other person might have another favorite dish. Doesn't mean it's the same thing. So you're both learning, oh, a ti te gusta el arroz con pollo, a ti te gustan los pasteles, you know? So it's the beauty of it. Just knowing that what you bring to the table, again, your sazon, everybody doesn't have it. So that's how I feel. And that's one of the celebrations, back to me celebrating my anniversary. I had an event yesterday. I keep saying yesterday.
I know, it's
had an event called Fall in Fashion.
Yes.
And the event called Fall in Fashion was a stylish wellness experience. I mean, I partner with a spa that I really love.
What spa was it? Can you say
it's naturopática.
Okay.
Which actually I was gonna tell you after the interview, but I'll tell you now. We have to take a date. I will invite you to go for a pampering day. And I was like, you know what? All of these women tonight that I sent, it was very intimate, like 10, 11 of us, including myself. And I just wanted to celebrate with the bloggers and stylists, content creators that have seen me through my career of 10 years. And I had maybe like 2 or 3 of the newest that has been added to my, close of friendships of fashion. And I just wanted to celebrate them. So I had a curated menu with the chef. She made like this really special fall menu just for us. Each one had a choice of getting a facial or a massage. We set intentions for 2023. The new fall season is coming, gratitude. I thank each one of them in like a personal card because I'm old school. I mean, I love the digital, but it's nothing like receiving a little thank you card written by someone that wanted to share that. And we had 2-3 hours of just being pampered. And, I said, this is the only day we're all going to look alike because we all had on like blue robes. But other than that, I just wanted to celebrate, one of them, she's a nurse and, shout out to her work because I'm sure that being a nurse is very hard. It's hard. Sabrina, but she's a fashionista. Then you have my friend Alexa. She also has her own job, but then she just recently got married and does fashion. I have a theater teacher. She's married with a son and fashion. So we have our lives. But I feel like one of the things, self-care too, part of the self-care, back to that question, massages. I love massages and like facial. So I just wanted to just give them a very like zen and wellness experience, but like stylish, still with a little bit of like my essence of of my little essence of fashion and style, and just treat them.
I was gonna ask you like in what ways do you give back to your community, but I feel like throughout this entire journey you celebrate your wins, but you give back as well.
I do give back. I see it as we are blessed to bless others. And I was actually saying that to my mom this morning, who made me arepas. I eat arepas almost every day because arepas is like, a main thing in my country. So I was telling her this morning, I said, Mom, sometimes I've seen that we were speaking about a situation and then I said to her, sometimes we are the blessing to somebody else's door. And we don't see it because if we lack confidence or we feel jealous of someone else, we might not say, hey, Alyi, do you want to come here with me today? Because you felt it in your heart, but I might think that you will look better than me, or you might say something that they will look at you better, but then I was that door of blessing for that opportunity that you had. So when I see that I'm blessed and I can bless another person, that's what I do. I don't mind. I share with my friends all my events. Let's go. You can come today. You want to get dressed up?
That's
Let's
what you
do
told
this.
me. You told me today too. Like, I'm gonna invite you to events. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
I love
like I
that.
said, we have different dreams. We don't have the same dreams, you know. So,
But that's why you're gonna keep getting blessed. You will continue to.
but
get
I'm
blessed
also
because of that.
humanitarian. I have an organization. I am in the works of changing the name because when we opened it, I had another founder. It was the two of us. But now I'm just gonna do it solo. Just because of the visions of different things I want to do. But with the Sisterhood of Faith, that's the name that we chose then. I went to Hurricane Maria. I helped for 60 days while I was there. Visited like so many pueblos. We helped like elderly people with Alzheimer's that were in Morovis that they haven't even reached out to them yet for relief. I have visited kids with cancer, take toys, read books. I visit kids that's been abused. I mean, so many things, safe homes, to go back to those women that I will be the one to relate to, or I want them to relate to me. Like, I've been through divorce, but I'm moving. I've been through rape, but I didn't get stuck here. I went through domestic violence and certain different things, you know, that you can share. So that's why it's important for me also, for us to share our voice. You don't know how powerful for you it could be to just take a visit one day to a safe home. You will be so surprised and so shocked to see over 20, 30 women that for them, they still probably don't understand why this happened, you know? So kudos to you too, to see you dressed fabulously, sitting here today, interviewing me. And you also have a lot of strength, and you're a strong woman to face your dreams, to live your dreams, and have a voice. So that's why it's so important for us who, at some point, we all obviously have a different walk, how we overcome things. And it is okay to take your time however you want to do it. But I'm just telling you that it's just so gratifying to give another sister or another friend a hug.
That's right.
That
And sometimes
has
that's
gone
all we
through
need,
what
by the way, is
that
a
has
hug.
gone through, just to hear, like, they probably see me walking in and be like, this girl did not go through all of that because of how I carry myself.
Right.
But this girl has a heart that was broken in so many little pieces, and, you know, it has meant to where she is now to continue focus with her path and purpose.
Would you ever write a book, Martha?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I will. I'm in the works of that. Yeah.
Because I feel like we need a book from you, by the way. I really do.
I do. I was actually a guest in 2020 for a book called She Wants to Move. And it was different women that doesn't know each other from social media with different walks of life who's gone through hardships. And we were guest writers. And the book is in Amazon. It made it to a really big publication in Canada. And I have a friend named Joanna. She invited me. Well, she's a friend now, but when she reached out to me, we didn't know each other. And part of that book, it's called She Wants to Move. And I love the concept. She Wants to Move is basically what I just said. Women like us, you've gone through something, but you didn't stay here. You moved, and you keep moving and growing and growing. At the end of the day, we are imperfect human beings, and we have a purpose in life to share our story and just go where we want to go.
What is this chapter right now in your life? What is it called?
This chapter is called I'm so freaking happy with my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so freaking happy with my life. I mean, afraid for so long to be signed. One, because it's cool to be the assistant, to be the person booking yourself. But I'm like, you know what? It takes an amazing team. It takes a village to get even higher. So what I'm grateful for this agency and being represented is I can go to a red carpet and some knows me as Martha Luna, the stylist, but it's not the same when your team really puts you out there, you know, when you work together. Yeah. And we all deserve a piece of that cake, of that achievement. I mean, even this event that I celebrated on, it was a celebration where I brought people in, but it's my first event that my talent manager and myself booked together. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting paid to celebrate with my friends and people that I admire and I love. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it hits different. It does.
And just other things. I know that I don't have the power alone to get to certain things. So I'm also grateful for the 10 years for a lot of women, just people that has introduced me to another person who mentioned my name in doors that I wasn't sitting in. So I'm grateful to everyone who has helped me in some way. Even this interview, you know, it's me being new to an audience that probably doesn't even know me, doesn't follow me. So thanks again for having me here in Growing Up Latina.
Thank you for coming.
Just every little experience that I feel for me is gratitude. That's why it's the happy time in my life, because I'm seeing finally the fruits, you know. Lo que has sembrado se está cosechando. So everything that you've seen, it's growing. You know, all those plants that you just put those little seeds and see, and that mountain that you think that was never going to shift and move for you is finally moving. And it's just going to get better, and things are just going to come, and better things. So I'm ready for it all. I'm just like,
listen,
I'm embracing it with open arms.
I called you in the beginning of this interview, I called you Big Flexer because you have a lot to flex about, a lot. You know, and I'm
but
so
humbly. I love that I can still, that's one of the biggest things I always pray for. I'm like, Lord, anything you give me, no matter where you put me, always maintain me humble, because I will always want that when I meet one of my followers or anyone in the street, they can say like, Martha Luna is exactly how we thought, how she spoke. Not like, Martha Luna is not what we saw her like, you know, in a sense. So that's important for me as well.
But it doesn't happen to just everyone, right?
Of course,
like these opportunities. Yeah, I mean, yes, a lot of it has to do with like you being at the right place at the right time, and you know, someone is saying your name, and you know, but you working with Chanel, like that's not a small thing.
You want to know the Chanel story?
That's not a small.
You want to know the Chanel story?
I must know the Chanel story.
Okay,
I have to.
Obviously, when I living here in New York, you learn all about designers and things like that. But I do remember this one lady, I don't know if I was 8 or 9. She was on the D train, dressed up, wintertime, fur coat, Vogue magazine, very nice.
She was given.
She was flexing, like you're saying.
She was flexing.
And I was like, okay, cool, love it. Her image in my mind, just stay there. Like, this is so amazing. Like, who is this person? Obviously, she was just a fashion lady then, you know? And then I kind of got related more into the Chanel brand. I just like the classiness of it. Obviously, reading a lot about, you know, Gabrielle, how she was one of the first women to cut her hair, us being able to wear white after Labor Day, the little black dress that Audrey Hepburn wore, because black dresses then were only dresses for funerals. Right. And Audrey Hepburn wore a little black dress, and that's how it became the famous little black dress that we run to now. And I was like, she's so classy. Like, this is what I see myself as when I want to speak about me being a woman, stylish in fashion. And obviously I could not afford Chanel because I'm a Latina then, and I didn't have no money. But I never saw myself buying a Chanel from Canal Street. Never. I was like, I can't do this. This is like a disrespect, you know? I have a tattoo right here. It's a vintage Chanel hanger.
Show it to the camera. I want them to see the close-up of it.
It's a vintage Chanel hanger. It has the 2 cc's, a hanger, and it says fashion. And I was just like, okay, I wear this. And I remember like my friends and like, you know, just people will be like, Chanel is that. Chanel doesn't know you. Chanel somehow knows me and the team, you know. For Chanel, being an ambassador is more like Rosalia, Penelope Cruz, but we are content creators that has an opportunity to do content for them. So I recently celebrated Chanel's birthday in August. So I kind of did a timeless photo shoot where I you know, got into that mindset, dressed up, wrote more about her so people can know a fashion house is not just the 2 CCs. Like, you need to learn a little bit more if you really love fashion on this designer. So this is another of those things that I've manifested into my life. And
like, I want to start doing tattoos now just to
say,
make sure.
I mean, it doesn't have to be.
See it
doesn't have to be a tattoo, but I always knew that one day I will have a Chanel bag, you know. And actually, my first Chanel bag, I got it when I had about 3 jobs, and it was from one of those vintage spots that, you know, people resells their bag, and, you know, my bag was real, but I still needed to have that feeling that I have a Chanel bag, that I walked into the store, that it opened up from the box and these things. But the opportunity of getting the Chanel giftings came to me prior for me actually getting the bag. And yeah.
You know what I was going to ask? What if, you know, because not all of us grow up with these opportunities, but what are some of the staple pieces you feel like we should have in our closets for someone who doesn't have the funds to buy a Chanel bag or, you know, anything that's like really high end?
Well, I love that you asked this question because my blog was mdollnyc.com. And when I wrote from my blog, it was to inspire young Latinas that came to the country, or even younger Latinas who had a dream, but also how to dress for less. So that was one of the topics that I always cover because, again, I wasn't able to afford those things. And even now that you see me, I can buy something from Zara. If the shirt fits me well and I like it, I'll pair it with some expensive shoes, you know? So I always wanted the Latinas to relate to me in that sense. Don't see me as this person who just walks out of her closet wearing Dior all the time or wearing Chanel. So, you know, I can buy something from Misguided, even Pretty Little Thing, just like still relate to me as a Latina who wants to ask those questions on where to purchase things. I get it. They write me all the time, like, where's your swimsuit from? Or where is this from? And, you know, I don't mind sharing them, and I will tell them. Or there's an app called LTK. I don't know if you know it. No, but LTK is basically where you post your look. And then they have other websites that you can search for similar pieces that you have. So you search for pieces that looks like these boots. Maybe Fashion Nova, like maybe Boohoo. And then I just share it with them if they can afford the actual item that I'm wearing, so they can still relate. So I kind of somewhat still have my blog per se, where I can still relate with my followers and people who support me. So I love LTK for that because you can just, you know, relate.
What about like consignment, like the Real or, you know, like things
a lot
like
of consignment stores, to be honest, I don't know. Wait, there's one store, I was just like talking to them. What comes around and what comes around and what goes around, I really like. That's one of those consignments. That's
an online consignment?
No, they actually have it in New York, but they do have online. There's Treasure NYC.
I know Treasure. I'm very familiar.
I love Treasure as well.
Are you a thrift shopper?
Not much, only when I have to style celebrities.
Okay.
Like when I have to style celebrities and they send you that mood board and you're like, where do I find this and where do I find that? I just go around the city looking for those things. But again, those little pieces that you need in your closet. I love nude shoes because for me, nude shoes, when you don't know what to match with anything, you can just put on some nude pumps and, you know, I feel like it goes with everything. Yes, obviously, a little black dress must have that in your closet, and something denim, whether it's a denim jacket, your perfect jeans, because I know we all have that one pair of jeans that you're like, this is the one I'm going to wear, whether it's with a sweater, a blazer, anything. So for me, honestly, those will be always my 3 favorite top things that I always have in my closet.
Love that. What about like blazers, patterns, and
I love colors. You'll always see me in colors. The other day I went to this event. It was like in a penthouse for was it Philip? Yeah, it was Philip Lim, and I was like, okay. Everyone was dressed up in black. I walked in, the elevator opened, and everyone in black.
Yeah.
I was dressed out in pink from head to toe. It was
love
like this
that.
little flamingo.
It
was like this little flamingo just
Yeah.
walked in.
Yeah.
But I do love colors, you know. Colors for me are so happy. I feel like a lot of people in New York really dresses a lot in black. It's like the to-go color.
I know.
I mean,
my problem. I'm always dressing in like dark colors.
It's cool. I love it for the winter too, but I just love colors a lot. I've always. Even like some of my celebrity Latino artists, I always ask them first when we do the consultation, ay, a mí me gusta el negro. And I'm like, that's the question
like the
I always
safest
receive.
color.
So I, you know, try to put them in different things. And that's what I love. Like, you know, now that we're speaking on things that I've done, just the versatility also of how creative I am, you know. I can be a fashionista. I love styling some of the celebrities that I've had the opportunities, editorials, videos, and things like that. So fashion is really fun for me.
Who do you want to work with that you have not?
Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny.
Quiero trabajar con el conejo.
Even if
it's one time. He doesn't even have to be my forever client. I've kind of stepped down a little bit on the styling, honestly, just because I want to focus more on the front of the scenes of my career per se. But I've loved, you know, I've worked with Braithiago, who's from Puerto Rico, for almost 5 years. Right now I work with Fran Rosano. He's an artist from Spain. So he's probably one of my newest. And whenever he's here, right now he's in Spain, in Cadiz, but whenever he's here, I do work with him. Recently I did Nati Natasha's cover for People in Español when she announced she was having a girl. Her whole family, the kids, another cover for her in the UK. So that was kind of my first styling job where I took my name internationally. And I've just worked with others. I've done Food Network also. I have a chef that I work with she was actually my first opportunity in TV to work with. So
what about brands? Some of the brands you would want to work with?
Brands? I mean, right now...
I mean, I feel like you're working with like the top tier brands, so it's like...
I did tell my manager, Zach, I was like, I want to work with Valentino. I do want to work with Dior. Like Chanel, Valentino, and Dior are kind of like my top there. And just, I'm very open to opportunities. I also want to meet Carolina Herrera, which is Venezuelan, and for me, it's very important. I was like, I do really want to have that tea time with her one day. But I'm also open. There's probably, I think every day we have extra dreams that comes in our mind that we want to set for ourselves, you know? So I'm pretty open of always venturing with new things. But those are some of the brands. I just started working with Lancome, so I just became a Lancome ambassador for content.
Love this.
And just other ones that I can't say yet, but
Okay.
I
Well,
just got reached out by Playboy
Yeah.
to be welcome to the family. So
Yes.
let's see where other things are going. And it's funny because my first costume ever was
Was Playboy?
a pink Playboy bunny. So
you
it's
just
crazy.
manifesting things.
I am. I'm like one of the important things I think about manifesting yourself is just believing. Believing in yourself. And then if that thing that you wanted didn't come, it's because probably something bigger is in store for you. But then it can also come in the same form that you prayed for something different. Because I've seen different dreams that I've wanted. It didn't happen with this brand, but then it happened with another brand. And I was like, you know what? This brand actually really goes more with my personality. I never thought I would have worked with this brand. So also be open to embrace that opportunity that comes for you, because you don't know where it's going to take you.
I feel like in this, I can't even call it an interview because it's like really a conversation for us, but I feel like you drop so many gems. What would be like the one gem you would want to leave for our Growing Up Latina audience?
Well, as a Latina immigrant, which for me, I feel like I've had to work harder, like twice as hard. Don't give up on your dreams, honestly. Like, I mean, it's something I know that we repeat in many people repeats, but be proud of your culture first, you know, and foremost. Like, always be proud. Share where you come from. Don't be ashamed of that. And also, I'm a person who always speaks Spanish. Like when I speak to my mom and my dad, even my grandma, I speak in Spanish to them. I always try to tell people, I'm from Venezuela. Have you tried arepas? Have you tried, you know, some of like those special dishes that makes me Venezuelan? But as a dreamer, it's so important to not listen to those voices that tells you that you are just, that's just a little dream that you don't know, that you don't know if it's gonna happen for you. You know, it's gonna happen for you. You have to believe in yourself. It could be 1 year from now, it could be 2 years from now, but the importance from it is don't stop believing in you. That for me is what has worked for me, because a lot of people can say it's not going to happen, but at the end of the day, it's not their dream. It's mine. It's mine to believe it. It's mine to put myself out there. It's mine to push myself. And when they say no, it's okay. Everyone can say what, you know, they want to say, because at the end of the day, it's freedom of speech, but doesn't mean that you have to believe it. You have to show them. And honestly, I feel like us Latina, we you know,
happen.
Exactly. I was going to let you say the word, but I mean, and this is for all women, honestly, because I do share my story to inspire every woman from every country in the platform, that if you have a dream, just go for it. And then just wait as thing comes also. I mean, patience, faith, also a lot of prayer. And you are going to meet other people too that are going to be that blessing and that door. So be open to receive those things when you don't expect them, and also be a blessing to others.
I love that. Thank you so much, Martha Luna. I feel like I got to clap for you, girl.
Gracias. And I'm clapping for you too. I'm clapping for you too.